And welcome to a chat with Elle Celeste with me, your host today, Antonio, here on Peace and Joy Radio. We are joined with Lizzie. Hi. How are you guys? We hope you're fine. We hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in into our series of addiction. And today we'll be discussing the knife and gang crimes that's been going around in the UK at the moment. So what was your reaction on this then?
I was actually pretty glad that we're talking about something like this because, as we all know in the news, a lot of shootings and stabbings have been going on around in the UK. So I feel like it was a really good topic to be touched upon, especially for the young people, so we know what's going on, for those that are not watching the news, so they're aware of what's going on, just to shed more light on it as well.
Definitely. So just to give you a little bit more of a background information, according to the news, that the Evening Standard News, at least 35 of those killed have been stabbed to death in an epidemic of violent street crime. Only last week, 4 people, including 2 teenagers, were killed on the streets of the capital. And in February alone, according to what we've known or what the media's presented to us, there've been more than 13 killings of young people. And in March, it has actually doubled to 18. That's the ones that we know without any more that's been mentioned. If we could count, possibly that means that someone's been stabbed or killed in a knife or gang crime every single day. And the most shocking thing that I found when I was doing this research was that the people who were being killed, the teenagers who were being killed, were predominantly from an African or Caribbean background. Does this affect our community? Does it have, does it reflect on our parents? Does it reflect on our community, our behavior? Or is it just something that's happening just by error or just, by coincidence?
Well, it will affect our community because, like you've just mentioned, that a majority are from an African or Caribbean background. So already you're going to be, you as parents are already going to be scared to let your children to be going out. You'd want them home at a certain time. Just the other day, my mum was just saying how, now we have to be extra protective over our children because you're going to want them home a certain time just because you're afraid of what could possibly go wrong. So if you as a parent, your child is just going to school, you're just going to want them to come straight home after school just because you don't know what's going on. So it is affecting our community, and as well I feel like it's probably going to affect the way people
perceive us as black,
the African Caribbean community. So they're more or less going to be scared of us, and I don't feel like they should, but because of what's going on, more or less that's how they're going to perceive us as more dangerous as well. So and
for the first time as well in the entire world, that we have overtaken the statistics. I can't speak. The statistics of New York by, obviously, our rates. The killing rates of London right now is much more higher than America, which has never been done anywhere else in the world, and we're the first ones to overtake it. Does this reflect on our government, or is it our parents' responsibilities, or is it our responsibilities of what we're doing, you know, to kind of tame down our children and say, look?
I would say maybe as parents we should tame them down just a little bit. I wouldn't say too much, but just a little bit, because considering, like you just said, what the news is saying now, this is the time now that you have to be more protective of your child more than ever, just because you don't want them to turn out as one of these people that are committing the crime, and just because you don't want them to be victims of the people that are committing the crime. So yeah, we have to tame them down. In terms of the government now, and that's actually I'm actually really interested about that fact that you said that London have actually overtaken America in terms of this amount of crime going on, which is, I find that really shocking. But in terms of the government now, I don't know if they've maybe put more laws into place, but would you say that would be more effective if they did put more laws into place in terms of controlling the terms of knife and gun crime?
I'm not entirely sure whether our children are afraid of the laws, because the problem is not within the law. To be honest with you, England, the UK as a country, has an amazing law system, and I would know, obviously, coming from a journalism background, we have so many law in places that, you know, obviously is placed everywhere in order to protect, you know, data, you know, protecting people, you know, public law and so on. But I think the problem is with the children. We need to look at the problem within our community. We need to look at the problems within our homes, like, you know, what's going on in our homes, what's going on with the children. Is it something that is it things that we don't talk about in our society? For example, can it come down to something like, you know, maybe hearing our children out, or is it something to do with, you know, mental problem, or is it something to do with, you know, being united and being together? That, you know, because obviously as Black people, we've been associated with our community not being one for unity. And as we can see from the news, that this subject in particular, it's, you know, mainly predominantly Black people. It's Black killing Blacks. It's not, you know, stabbings against white people or so on, but it's actually Black people killing Black people. So maybe that says something in regards to us as a community. You know, maybe there's a problem with us in terms of how we act, or maybe there's underlying problems. You know, maybe we don't realize on the certain issues of maybe aggressivity, like, you know, being aggressive at home, how our parents are aggressive, or maybe family members are aggressive, how it can affect us outside, or maybe just being able to or not speak at home can also affect our children, and that's why they're acting in the way that they're acting out.
So yeah, I actually agree with what you're saying in terms of that. So I feel like we have to start from home, basically, create an effective change within our community first, because we can't go around blaming the government for all these crimes going on. We have to start from home, try and see what the problem is, the underlying issue, and then try and resolve that before blaming the government for anything.
So would you say that it's our parents' fault that we're seeing so many killings in London? We're seeing children, you know, teenagers as young as the age of 12, 13, you know, killing each other, postcode fight, this thing of postcode fight, fighting over something that doesn't even belong to you, fighting over something that belongs to the government, you know, being from two different sides of the, you know, the city, London, from east or west or east or north, and fighting each other postcode fights because I don't want to see you in this area, so if I see you, I kill you. Do you think that it's our parents' fault? And if it is, why is it our parents' fault?
Not necessarily, because some parents have been doing a good job, but some of their children just not turned out as the way they expected. So we can't even use that parent card and say, oh, it's definitely the parents' fault. Yes, there are some cases where some parents have not trained their child properly, or they've not taken care of their child properly, so they're coming from a background where, from, like you said, from abuse and whatnot, so they've now retaliated and taken that out and started committing crime and joining gangs and stuff like that. But there are some parents that have done a good job, but their child have just, maybe due to the friends they're hanging around with, the society, the type of community, so like how you've just mentioned in London with the South and the West, I mean, the East,
whatever postcode.
And they're representing, so they're repping their
area.
The area. So it's just maybe just that area, and they've just happened to come into a gang and just got involved, so they're moving with the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the parents of the upbringing. Like I said, some people have actually been growing up well, but it's just maybe the people that they're hanging around with, and they've just got involved.
But then, is it not our parents' responsibilities to know our friends? And this is where it comes back, you know, a child as young as 13, 12 years old getting stabbed. Is it not our parents' responsibility to know our friends, the people that we're hanging out with? At the age of 12, 13, they should know where you are, you know, be able to contact you, know your friends at least when, you know, when you're hanging outside. And should they even be able to hang around outside at a certain time, you know? Because these killings are not happening in the morning, are they? Not at all. I don't think so. I don't think it's happening in the morning because everything's out there, you know, it's bright and sunshine. But does it not come to controlling your child to an extent of knowing that where your child is? A 13 years old, a 12-year-old, should the parents not have more control of them?
Definitely at that young age. I mean, at that age, like you rightly said,
even out.
You shouldn't even be out at a certain time. At the right places, like, you know, that saying, you need to be at the right place at the right time, especially at that young age. As a parent, naturally you will be protective over your child. You definitely should. I do agree with what you said. You should know the type of people your child is moving with, what type of friends they're having, when they're going out, where they're going, what time are they coming back. Definitely. You know, I feel like as well, when you said something about how people perceive the African Caribbean community. You know, when you see a group of lads just hanging around places, hanging around on the street, you know, you become intimidated.
To be honest with you, as a woman, even though I'm from exactly the same race, sometimes when I see a group of just young kids, I'm scared for my life, because within this stage, you just don't know what's going to happen. You just don't know who they are. You just don't know their intentions. You just don't even know if they're going to jump on you. Like, I'm scared for my life. Like, you know, our children should not be allowed to hang around with friends unless the parents know the background of the friends and the family that they're coming from, because that is a type of protection anyway, and at least it avoids them from getting into trouble. And I always feel like once they start getting into trouble and they start, you know, like they start feeling like, oh, it's all right, they always think that I can push it even further and just try and see what's going to happen next.
You need to discipline them. It's that word of discipline, really. So, like, put actions in place, like you said, set curfews. That's an example of discipline. Set curfews. You know, if they want to, maybe just not allow them to be going out all the time. Don't make it become, like you said, a habit of things. You know, like, so you need to discipline. That discipline needs to be there.
Exactly. Absolutely. So my next question is this public aggression that we're seeing from the media, is it a reflection of our homes as, you know, Afro-Caribbeans, or maybe is this aggression that our kids are portraying through anger or some type of mental problem, mental issues, because they're not able to speak out? Or is it just because, you know, it's normal, like, you know, because they're just meeting people from outside and just think, oh yeah, we'll just join in with the bad crowd, with the wrong crowd?
I'll tell you a story actually that I recently heard, something in the news that a group of friends, I think they were arguing. Something like there was 4 of them, so they were arguing back. 2 of them actually specifically in that group were arguing back and forth, and they settled the argument. But not knowing, one of the friends that were arguing, he was carrying a knife. And so when they now got to the estate, so one of them had called up one of the guy's mom that said, oh, we're on our way back to the house. So the mom said, okay, yeah, we'll just cook you up something, just like waiting for you. So they got to the estate now, and the friend that was carrying the knife out of nowhere got the knife and just stabbed the friend that he was arguing with from the back. And whereabouts he stabbed him, if you look, is close to the heart. So by the time they'd taken him to the hospital now,
he was proclaimed dead.
Yeah, he was proclaimed dead. So when the point that I'm trying to get at was when they actually did the interviewing the remaining of the friends in the group, that how did this come about, you know, what was the story they all said they're close friends, they naturally grew up together. That guy that was actually carrying a knife is a good guy. They didn't even know he was carrying a knife. They didn't even know when he started carrying knives. And this incident happened that they always argue back and forth. Naturally, as friends, you will argue, but I didn't think that he would stab
But then my question is it a reflection of our own homes? Because obviously in the modern society, you just don't think, all right, I'm just going to carry, or like, you know, realistically speaking, you just don't think I'm going to carry a knife. Is it not based upon what these children are seeing at home? Because, you know, we come from, I'm going to put it out there, I just know that as Afro-Caribbeans, we tend to be feisty. And our parents come from very feisty backgrounds, you know, where they will say something, maybe, for example, you know, when we was growing up, when sometimes, you know, an auntie or an uncle or your parent would say, I will kill you, but they don't necessarily mean that I'm going to kill you. And, you know, obviously coming from now where we're being brought up in the Western community, when you say that to a child and they don't understand that, maybe it's like, you know, a build-up of anger, or maybe, you know, like when a parent is holding an object, you do that one more time again, you see what I'm going to do to you. You know, I'm going to put this on you if you do it one more time. But the parent don't mean it. So then maybe children are getting, you know, that perception of what they're seeing at home, putting in their heads, carrying objects around and thinking it's okay because they're seeing it at home. I feel like it's also a reflection of the background of where you come from or the home where you are. That is partially to blame for, even though I don't deny the fact that obviously the environment that you are and the, you know, the friends that you are influence you 100%. But I also think that it's a reflection of how, you know, sometimes how our parents or where we come from, how our community does stuff.
Yeah, I honestly, I agree with that, but that there are, I feel like, some instances when you read further into it, it's simply just because of, like you said, these areas where gangs are heavily in, and they're just trying to represent their community and whatnot, and they feel like, I remember I was watching something where they were interviewing people and they're saying, you know, like these gangs type of documentaries when you watch on the TV, and they say a lot of them that you tend to interview, they said they carry objects.
Yeah.
Why? Oh, just to protect myself. What are you protecting yourself from? Just to protect myself. But I mean, when you ask further, like, what do you need to protect yourself from? So a lot of them, it's just simply because of what they've seen, and they feel like they need to protect themselves from something. Maybe someone's going to attack them, I don't know. So, like, and with that example that I gave earlier on, who knows, it could be a mental illness, who knows, but we don't know further.
But then, I mean? So, going back to that, then how community, we're not really the type of people who discuss mental illness, because it's kind of like a taboo to us. We don't discuss mental illness, we don't discuss killings, we don't discuss, you know, we don't discuss topics as such, when in fact it's something that is affecting our children, it's something that is affecting our reality, it's something that is affecting our community. But, you know, because as children sometimes we might feel unable to come out from that. So that is why a lot of things is happening around, you know, these areas as well. And I think as well that it's where you bring your children up that counts as parent, you know. For example, obviously you don't judge, but if you're bringing your children up in an area that's not, you know, that's not really,
that's
rough, you know, I didn't want to say the word, but yeah, that's rough. The chances that, you know, there's a massive chance that, you know, it could go either way. There's a massive chance that it could go either way, even if you try to avoid it. But children develop friendships and all sorts of things. So there's a massive chance that they are going to school, they are meeting these people, like, you know, in that area, they're going outside, they're seeing these people. The chances are that the children can turn up, can be, you know, either one way or another.
So would you say that if you're living in a more rough area, you need to be extra tame your child more than someone that was living, let's say, not that rough of an area, but there's still those type of people surrounding in that area that their child can mingle with? So which one would you say that you'd have to be more protective over your child? You have to tame your child more?
Well, in general, you just have to tame your child anyway, because the reality of the matter is that when I was looking at the news, one of the guys who got stabbed, I think maybe 2 months ago, he came from a very bad background. He came from a very good social class, which means that obviously it doesn't matter what class you come from. You know, your child can still end up being in the place where, you know, they find themselves in a bad crowd. But if you're living in a place where, you know, it's rough and all that kind of stuff, maybe when the child gets to a certain age, they need to also realize what they want from themselves.
Yeah, I feel like it's true, but I feel like as well, like, a lot of, like, you know, when you was talking about the parents and how they brought up the child as well, a lot of these parents, let's be real, they install this fear in their children. They don't create that relationship with their child. And like you said, issues like mental illness, depression, anxiety, stuff like that is often a taboo. And a lot of parents, when you say that you've got that, it's just thrown to the side. They don't really tend to tackle it further and talk more and try to explain it to their children and try to understand. And like you said, it might be a result, it might be one of the many results as to why they retaliate and go into these type of crime.
Absolutely. So we're just going to take questions from our Facebook Live. Thank you so much for joining us on A Chat with Elle Celeste on Peace and Joy Radio. Don't forget that this is not the only show that goes past here. You can tune in into our Facebook page, because there are a selection of shows as well that happen to come live on here and that discuss many other things. So just taking a question or comment from our brother Oliver, which say, does the government not have a role by preventing parents from being able to rightly discipline their children with the threat of taking them away?
So wait, is the person basically asking that does the government have the right to take the children away if they...
So does the government not have a role by preventing parents from being able to rightly discipline their children? So I'm thinking by rightly discipline the children maybe means like, you know, if a parent kind of like slaps the children or something like that, threatens to take them away, you know, social service gets involved. And that's why maybe parents are thinking like, oh, I'm too scared, you know, I don't want to hit my child, I don't want to discipline them because I don't want the child to be taken away from me.
Yeah, but you already know from our culture, from our background, a lot of our parents, they've come from Africa, they've come here, they've been bringing their children up in the West, like you said at the beginning, a westernized culture. And a lot of the ways, let's say, of how to bring up a child, they've brought that from over here and they're still doing it here. That's why I'm not going to lie, a lot of a lot of... children sometimes are taken from social services because it's not what they're used to, but whereas it's how our parents have been brought up, that's their culture, believe it or not, and believe it or not, it is our culture as well. So I feel like I wouldn't say there is no right or wrong, but at the same time I'll say there is kind of no right or wrong in this sense. But doesn't the Bible even say that we should something along the lines of how to tame our children.
We should discipline our children.
Yes.
But do you not think that there's also different ways of disciplining your children other than hitting them with sticks and, you know, throwing knives in the faces?
See, there's a difference between discipline and there's a difference and also abuse. Those are two separate things.
Well, then do our African parents know the difference between discipline and abuse?
What do they know? Discipline is everything is discipline in their eyes. Whether it's hitting, whether it's smacking, whether it's shouting, whether it's talking, everything is discipline. So if you were to tell someone from probably an African Caribbean background, oh, you hitting at your child is abuse, they will probably abuse you.
Maybe we don't have the understanding of, you know, knowing that they are doing it from a place of love. But we don't understand that love because we've been brought up in a Western world where things like that don't exist.
Yeah,
so, you know, to us, that is abuse. Like, I remember a story that my pastor was telling me one time, that woman, you know, she had 3 children and they was pretty young. There was about 4, 3, and maybe another baby that she just given birth to. When she was dropping the little child, the firstborn, in school, and I think the little girl forgot the tights, and then she was like, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you, you forgot your tights, I'm going to kill you. So the child went to school being terrified of that because it's a 4-year-old, like, you know, let's not get it twisted. Yeah. And they don't know anything about Africa. They're being brought up in this Western world. The child generally goes to schools and says, I don't want to go home today because my parents said she's going to kill me. My mother said she's going to kill me. So then they had to call the other child and say, well, your sibling just said that your mom says stuff like she's going to kill you. What is this statement true? And obviously as a child, she responds, yeah, she says that a lot. She says she's going to kill us. Obviously what happened was that social services had to get involved and the children were taken away from her. But then, you know, in that point, do we say, as Africans say, do we blame the devil? Or do we, you know, say that, you know, maybe sometimes as our parents, we should tame our mouths. We should tame our tongues and not say such things.
It's true. I get what you mean, because in circumstances like that, they tend to say, oh, it's the devil that got involved somehow or whatever. But sometimes they don't check themselves and believe, okay, I'm trying to discipline this child. Maybe, like you said, watch your mouth. You don't need to be saying all that. You know, like my dad always says, you know, there's a certain time for everything. You naturally, if you're trying to discipline your child, you don't even need to use your hands. You don't need to use your hands. You don't even need to use anything. Your tone of your voice, they should know, okay, let me not do this. This is wrong. Eye contact. You know, they always give that eye contact, those eyes.
That side eye,
exactly.
sideline.
And sometimes it's just your words. Just use your words. But obviously, like I said, from there, when they were growing up, there was no such thing as that.
Which I do understand, but I also believe that there is a different way of trying to discipline our children so they don't go astray. Because I think that when you hit a child, they'll think like, oh, it's just pain. Like, you know, next time I can do it again and we'll move on because they're just going to hit me. And all of a sudden, the child just get used to the parents hitting them. And obviously they rebel. They grow up with, you know, being heartbroken because they think that my parents didn't love me. There's so many things. So my brother says again, if they can't discipline the children, then maybe it is the cause of them being on the streets. What do you think?
As if the parents can't discipline the children.
Yeah. We've just mentioned that obviously there's different ways of disciplining the children. We don't believe that just hitting your children is a form of discipline. There are many other ways that you can discipline your child. Thank you so much for watching The Chat with Elle Celeste. We're just going to take you to a break, but stay tuned. Please don't forget to comment, to write your questions, and also like, share the page if you found the topic interesting. Don't forget that we also have other shows on here. Make sure that you follow us on A Chat with Elle Celeste and also on Peace and Joy Radio, and we'll see you back in 5 minutes. Hello and thank you for joining us back on A Chat with Elle Celeste, where we've been discussing on our topic of addiction with gang and nice crimes today. So we're going to go straight into our next question, which is, with death rates being higher than New York at the moment, and as a young young people dying every single day, does this threaten us as future parents in regards to where we want to raise our children?
Definitely. A lot, because especially after when we spoke earlier about all the things that's going on in the news and everything now, and you as people, as future parents, most definitely are going to want to move their children out of the community that they're currently in.
Yeah.
Just because they're trying to protect them, they don't want their children to eventually grow up where there's gangs, there's a lot of heavy knife crime, and they don't want them to eventually either, like I said before, either become the victims or be the people involved in those knife crime or a part of the gangs. So you're definitely going to be more protective, definitely going to want to maybe relocate as well. So you're definitely going to be more protective with your children.
I think what worries me as a young black female watching this, I'm thinking, oh my days, like, you know, is this problem going to spread all over the UK? Because at the end of the day, the fact is that the media is just portraying things about London, but what about the areas that we don't know? Like, you know, what's happening to the areas that we don't know, that's not been spoken about in the news, that's not been discovered? I think my biggest worry is that, you know, is this thing going to stop, or is it going to spread around the UK? But then that leads me into another question of saying, do you think that, you know, maybe the blacks are being targeted? Because we don't see this happening to, for example, other race groups, just because, like, maybe their unity is a lot stronger. So do you feel like maybe it's an attack on us? Because at the end of the day, I was watching a program and there was a person who was an influencer, and he was a white man, and he said that, you know, he wasn't going to seek anyone who was of an older age. He was going to seek these little children who wants to get money and who want to gain money. They don't want to work for the government. They don't want to be paid £7 an hour to kind of, like, you know, work and labour hard for the jobs. So do you feel like they're coming to do it because they're targeting us? They know that we're not strong enough to stand on our own 2 feet?
I wouldn't say they're trying to target us. Naturally, I feel like you should, because me personally, I'm not one where anything I do is a case of, oh, is it because I'm black? I don't like using that type of racial card all the time like that, but I feel like a lot of people in the African Caribbean community tend to use that card quite often. Where is it because we are of a different colour that this is because of why we're being treated a certain type of way and everything like that. But like you said, majority of all this crime and stuff I feel like it just happens to be from our community. So I don't feel like they're targeting us, but let's be real, it is happening in our community.
Maybe we're targeting ourselves. Exactly,
like you said it before, it's blacks killing blacks. It's not like that's what what you gather from our research, that it's majority black people killing black people. So at the end of the day, I feel like it's not that we more or less have ourselves to blame. So
of course,
we shouldn't be using this racial card and be saying,
because obviously when there's no unity, it's going to be disastrous. And when it's disastrous, you know, we only have ourselves to blame. But then again, do we have other people to blame? Like, you know, is there other conflicts that's been inflicted into us, so then we can, you know, maybe not be as strong as a bond as other races?
Well, I do agree as well, sorry, with what you said before about, well, you do get some people from that are white that tend to try and target, you know, like it's just the black, you know, try and target us and to try and portray us in this way that we are aggressive and we are aggressive and we tend to use all this anger and just lash out into gangs and knife crime. So I feel like it's for and against. You can't really say it's their fault, you can't really say it's our fault. But I feel like some people will try and use that advantage that we are black and try and just push us in that light and make us look like the bad guys.
And the way that the media is portraying this matter, do you think that obviously in the future it will have effect on us? You know, maybe getting jobs and being in places, you know, secure workplaces, or, you know, becoming big? Because, you know, watching it, I am so saddened. As you mentioned before, that you're not someone who uses race cards, and neither am I, because we've been brought up in this, you know, in this place and, you know, in the Western world, and we just think everything's normal. Even though we can't deny that, you know, there's some controversy between, you know, different races, but, you know, we just believe like everything else is normal, like because we've been brought up in it. But I feel like I'm starting to fear the fact that sometimes we might be getting judged by employers and recruiters because of our skin colors and everything that the media is being portraying. Because, you know, at the end of the day, I just don't think, even though obviously, yes, the majority of the killing is a predominantly, you know, blacks against black, but we can't say that all of it is. So that I am terrified for my future, not only for my future, but I'm terrified for our children's future. I'm terrified, you know, for everything that we're becoming and for everything that we're being portrayed of.
But it's been, like you said, it's been happening for a time anyway, and I don't feel like there's a day that will most likely stop.
Which I understand that it's been happening for a long time, but it's not being portrayed as much as it's come out, you know, in this day in the media and, you know, everywhere around the news, and, you know, it's just heartbreaking. It really breaks my heart. I think that what we should do is, as a community, that we should stand up and we should pray. We should pray because, you know, it's more than just a physical thing. It's also a spiritual. It's more of a spiritual attack. We should definitely, you know, realize this. We should definitely realize this in our conscience and stand in the gap. Stand in a gap for our children. Stand in a gap for our future. Because as little as we know, as little as we might think of it and put in our head, but this is our future in stakes here. You know, our parents might pass away, but we still have a life to live. So we definitely have to stand in the gap for our brothers, for our sisters, for our, you know, for our cousins, nephews, whatever. So going on to our next question, like I mentioned before, in an interview with a street influencer, he clearly mentioned that jobs nowadays are labours and no one would like to work for £7 an hour when it takes a couple of days to make a couple of £1,000. Is it the government's responsibility to create better paid jobs and more jobs to avoid gang crimes?
Oh, well, we can still, at the end of the day, I feel like we can't blame the government for majority of our mistakes. So yes, I do feel like the government should be providing more jobs for all races, not just the African Caribbean community, for all races.
Yeah, it was obviously speaking of all races. Yeah,
definitely they should provide more jobs for us, for all races. But I don't feel like we should be, like I said, be blaming them again for any of our mistakes, anything that we're going through as communities, to straight away say, oh, it's the government's fault. But like what we said before, why don't we resolve the underlying issues going within our communities ourselves first before we start pushing the blame onto the government?
But what happens when people are constantly, you know, not just our community, but everyone? What happens when people are being paid £7 an hour and, you know, when you're always struggling or scraping your bank account, you know, poor and poor, like, you know, are people's mentality going to change?
We will never change.
Exactly.
Everyone always wants more money. We will never change. But like I said, stop pushing the blame on a higher power and start fixating on yourself first. Try and become the better you. If it's a case of, okay, you are working, let's say, a 9-to-5 job and that income isn't enough, start your own business. Start doing something more creative, something that you're good at. You know, I feel like as well, like, funny enough, we always say in our church where we should try and empower other people. If you have a certain skill that you're good at, you know, network with people, make connections with people that you can better yourself, and then try and create that business. Of if it means that you're good at doing makeup, try and become a makeup artist as well as your 9-to-5 job. You know, you've got that on the side. Stop pushing. I feel like we should stop pushing blame on this higher power and just focus on ourselves. There's so much. Funny enough, we've got so many resources, but people are so quick to complain and so quick to it's never good enough. It's not enough. They're not paying me enough.
Well, you know, creating a business is hard. It's hard. It's hard. You know, it's more easy said than done. To be honest with you, you know, to establish and to build it, to get the people to follow you and actually buy and, you know, and start to become your clients, is definitely easier than said. I feel like, you know, obviously sometimes the children will lack direction, and anyone, not just for children, but anyone going towards that direction, they need to at least have a system of support, because you can't just wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to create a business. You might have a fantastic idea, but you lack the way of knowing how to do it. It's not going to work. And that's just reality.
That's what links back to what we said about community, though, when we were saying how we can work together and create this unity in our community. That's part of those type of things. If I've got an idea now, let's say for example, I've got an idea now that I love doing makeup. I want people to look great. When people go to events, I want them to look great. If I now come into my community, let's say for instance a church, because a church is a community, and run that idea, I can definitely guarantee majority of the people in that community will support you one way or another. If you come and say, you know what, I want people to look good, I'm great in this, but I don't know how to do this, I'm lacking in this area, they will support you. And then from there, that's how it grows, and then that's how it grows, and then that's how it grows. So it's a gradual process. I'm not saying your business needs to be a top something, but it starts off small and then you work your way there.
Okay, so our next question is then gangs, brotherhoods, which they call it. Is this an addiction, and does it reflect on the lack of love and self-esteem from our children? The fact that they decide to get into gangs because they feel like maybe they might be getting protected, from these people. And they call it a brotherhood because they think like, if I get into this guy, at least I've got people that are going to protect me and they're going to stand beside me. Is this a lack of self-esteem and, love that we get from our homes?
It could be a lack of love. So like, how we mentioned before, if, they're grown up in a type of household where there is no love, there's just constant fear installed in them, they're going to retaliate and go out to search for that love, that type of love where they can grow, that type of love where people love, but they're being loved back. And that whole idea of protection, if you're in a community where there's constant crime, naturally you're going to feel like I mentioned the story that I said before, when they interviewed the boy, why are you carrying certain objects? Oh, feel protected, to protect myself. But from what? So I feel like they are all of these type of crimes. Yes, they are joining. I feel like they are joining these gangs. Like you said, the idea of brotherhood is a sense of belonging as well, somewhere where they can feel like home. So like, and the minute my mentality of cults as well is the minute you join, there is no going back. Though,
of course,
that's the whole that's the only thing that there is. That's that saying where the way you joined, the way you leave, it's either death or that's it, like pretty much. So like I feel like it's a sense of they're trying to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of love, a sense of brotherhood, but also a sense of protection, being protected. That whole idea of people that can protect them as well from the crimes going on.
Yeah, maybe, they've been rejected in the past and they don't feel like they've got someone, that they can speak to. But then obviously they feel like they're just joining something because they want to be, they just want to be involved, but then it turns out the wrong way. If you feel like you've been involved in a place, or you feel like you've been involved in a crowd that is not correct, or it's not correct, please don't feel afraid to ever go out to someone and reach. Or if you feel like that you can talk to us, we are available to be reached at. You can please contact us on our individual Facebooks, on a chat with Elle Celeste. For your support, we will be there. So our next question is that, do you think there is also a lack of mental support? Like, obviously carrying a knife just to say that I just want to protect myself. It all comes from the head, because at the end of the day, who's chasing you?
It's true, who is chasing? But like you said, if you're living in a community where there is a lot of heavy... I actually have a question. If you were living somewhere where there was heavy knife and gun crime, would you start carrying an object just to protect yourself? No, I know you wouldn't, but put yourself in that young boy's shoes just for that one blip for a minute, just because I feel like not that I wouldn't, because I'm currently trying to think in my mind, but that young boy, whoever he is, wherever he is, he's thinking, okay, this is happening in my school, this is happening in my community, every time I go out I'm hearing this is so person has died or whatever. They're thinking, okay, they need to protect themselves. That's why they're holding these objects. So it's not as if because we're probably laughing at it, that who's actually chasing you, but they're actually seeing it as, so person is after them, they're trying to protect themselves. And you know what I was actually going to say as well is, we're trying to put the law in our in our own hands by doing all these type of things. Like I feel like a lot of things that happen in our community as well is that we don't have a lot of hope in the justice system and in the police. So we're trying to take the laws into our own hands and like justice into our own hands and trying to do things. If this doesn't happen, oh, don't worry, I can do it. Whereas it's not even your job to do such a thing, you know? So I feel like that's what...
So Jesus said, I am the light of the world. And how can the youths of today, the ones who know Christ, the ones who are in the body of Christ, be involved and, you know, help to influence the youths that are going in the wrong direction to come?
Well, I actually know there's a lot of mentoring schemes that they do in these type of communities, in community centres. Yeah. Where they, if it's young men, young boys, young men, talk to them, try and guide them in the right steps. If issues that we spoke about, the taboo issues like mental illness, depression, stuff like that, that they are going through, and they can always have someone to talk to. Yeah. So just developing that relationship with them, not being so quick to judge that they're going through things in their community, but trying to understand what they're lacking and what they need, what support they need. So stuff like that, trying to reach out to people. But if also as brothers and sisters, if we notice someone's going to the wrong path, they're starting to mix with the crowd that they shouldn't be mixing with, voice up and say something, voice out and talk to that person. Don't come in that way of you should not be doing, but come in a way of approach, you know, I feel like we've got an approach of love. So that's what I personally
maybe think. Us young Christians, and we lack ways of being, because, you know, to be honest with you, there's always someone, we're never really far away from someone who needs help.
Definitely.
So the person who needs help might just be right next to us, but maybe it's a way of saying it, or maybe us young Christians as well, to start acting up a little bit more, you know, not just to start keeping ourselves from church, you know, maybe to start reaching out a little bit more, maybe as well as young Christians, that we should be connected a lot more, that we should be connecting, and, you know, in the body of Christ to do the work that God has sent us, because the Bible declares that young people are like you because you are strong. And as we are strong, we should try to influence as many people as we can, not just, you know, be in the church where we have our own little issues and problems and just trying to evangelize to ourselves. People who are in the church are already in the church and God is working on them. Our biggest assignment is to go outside and, you know, try to gain more people for the kingdom of God, to gain more friends for the kingdom of God, you know, and also maybe use different approaches as well. Like, you know, someone who doesn't believe in God, a youth who doesn't believe in God, a youth who doesn't know about God, I don't think the wisest of ideas is straight away to attack them. You should always use what they are going through to kind of like insert that into bits and, you know, trying to make them come out.
But it also is like platforms like this, when you speak about these issues as well, you are, believe it or not, targeting people, and people that are watching as well, that are maybe going through this, can hear this and feel enlightened and go about it a certain type of way. So it's platforms like this where we can talk about issues like this, issues like gang culture and stuff like that, and issues that aren't really spoken about, can also help people that are going through those situations.
Definitely. We just wanted to also let everyone know that we are not judging anyone at all from what we're saying. So if you have any issues and you have any problems, and you feel like what we've said today has touched you, please don't feel afraid to contact us, because we will be willing to support you in any way that we can, or direct you at least in the right hands. So thank you so much for watching a chat with Elle Celeste today. How do you think, just to wrap up, what else do you think that we can do in order to support, you know, our young black men and the way that they've been portrayed today, or, you know, at least to stop them from fighting each other? Is there a way that we can do, you know, is it possible for two people to start something and to influence the world?
Well, I would say for a young black man, don't use your colour of skin to defeat you in any way. If it's in a job world, if it's in your families, in your home, never use your colour of skin as an excuse. I feel like you're full. There's so much in you that you don't know. So many resources that you're gifted with that you can use as an advantage and to influence this world in so many ways. So I would say, just keep being you. Be unique. We are unique. We don't ever say that because of your colour of skin that you have a disadvantage. If anything, it's always an advantage. So, but yeah, that's my advice for young black men.
And we should also spread love to, you know, every single race, because it's half of the time, you know, actually it's not about race, but it's us people that we insert race into things. Thank you so much for watching A Chat with Elle Celeste. With me today, Otilia, and also Lizzie, who was on by my side. Don't forget that you are watching Peace and Joy Radio. You can actually go on Facebook, like Peace and Joy Radio, and also go online and follow Peace and Joy Radio. Don't forget, as I mentioned before, that we also have amazing shows on here, like Beautiful Mind, that happens right here on Peace and Joy Radio on Wednesdays from 5 p.m. Please tune into that with more interesting topics. Please connect with us individually, either on A Chat with Elle Celeste, Elizabeth. What's your surname, by the way? I can never say it.
It's okay. Just go on Facebook. Elizabeth
and Otilia. Once again, thank you and good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm calling on your name, not Buddha nor Muhammad, but it's Jesus we cry out loud.